I'm not boycotting Blizzard, and I'm not a spineless pansy for choosing not to do so. This is MultimediaJay Radio Style for Sunday, October 13th, 2019. Let's start the show.
MultimediaJay Radio Style.
So, wanting to move away from this talk about Blizzard and World of Warcraft and stuff like that, I've been reading about other things that have been going on with console and PC gaming and making plans to record other videos and do something besides podcast all the time. And then, in a classic, just when I thought I was out, they go and pull me back in kind of situation, I find out today that there are protests being planned for BlizzCon. And there are people that are like, look at me, I'm boycotting Blizzard, I'm sticking it to them, I'm unsubbing from World of Warcraft, I'm uninstalling their games, I'm deleting my accounts with them, I am shutting everything down, that'll teach them. Oh, really? You sure it will. Well, anyways, I don't know if I scared away a bunch of folks who started following me with this WoW stuff because they wanted me to just bash Blizzard incessantly and or troll me, and I haven't given them what they've been looking for. But this is the part where if somebody wanted to troll me, they would accuse me of jumping in China's back pocket, kissing up to Blizzard. They would jump immediately to the other extreme in a classic false dilemma, which is a logical fallacy where you assume an outcome simply due to the lack of the other outcome, and you don't think there can be any other outcomes besides the ones that you think would happen. So, lack of a no means yes, lack of a yes means no, the enemy of my enemy is always my friend, things like that. It's a very simple-minded way to go through life and to deal with difficult people situations, even with the knowledge that people are very, very good at complicating the living heck out of things. Someone who wants to engage in this logical fallacy will accuse me of jumping in Blizzard's back pocket or jumping in China's back pocket or making excuses for Blizzard or whatever, assuming that I'm totally in favor of what's been going on simply because I'm not knee-jerk deleting all of my Blizzard accounts right now. The truth of the matter is that because I actually thought about what to do about the situation, it didn't take the knee-jerk first response that came to mind and make a big YouTube video to get a bunch of clicks and likes and blah blahs on the internet. Because I didn't basically throw a temper tantrum on social media about all of this, I actually know that doing something like that would not make this problem any better. As a matter of fact, it would make it worse. And there's really not anything that I can do about this. Even the stuff that you might think, like, oh, hit him where it counts, hit him in the wallet. That's, when you consider what the alleged problem is here, there's not a thing that that's going to do except make the problem even worse. Let's recap, shall we? People are accusing Blizzard of prioritizing the Chinese market over the Western market because China is an emerging, growing market with lots of potential customers, and the cultural differences between the United States and the People's Republic of China have created perhaps potential customers that won't mind certain avenues of monetization as much as customers in the West would. Therefore, to simplify things, because Blizzard sees the potential for more money to be made in the Chinese market than the West, they're taking China's side, blah, blah, blah. That's what the knee-jerk folks who are blowing up about this are accusing Blizzard of doing. So, let's assume that Blizzard is engaging in a cover-up and that the folks making the accusations that Blizzard is favoring China are absolutely correct. What exactly will shutting down all of your accounts do, except make the problem worse? The problem is that there's more money in China than in the West, so Blizzard's playing favorites, right? So you make the problem even worse by shutting down your accounts and making sure that that comes true more and more, and that there's less money in the West and there's more money in China. So at the end of the day, you've accomplished what? Except for getting yourself all worked up about a situation that you can't do anything about. And even the things that you normally could do are going to prove to be fruitless. Congratulations, you've made the very thing that you're complaining about worse in your attempts to fix it.
But that's not fair, and that's not right.
Absolutely. 100% right on both counts. The good news is, though, if we step back from the situation and we take a look at what caused it in the first place, assuming the allegations are true that Blizzard favors Chinese customers over Western customers and is trying to make a ton of money over in China to the detriment of the business they already have in countries like the United States, what would have caused something like that? The very thing that happens in markets all the time. And we have zero control over this because it's just something that happens as time goes by. Changes. This situation exists because of changes that have taken place in the markets. This situation came into existence because of change. This situation will eventually go away because of change. The problem with these situations, as always, is what to do in the meantime until the changes take place. But the changes always do take place. That's what matters here. No king rules forever, as we heard at the end of Lich King, and there have been times in the history of companies doing business when it seemed like this company that people weren't too fond of was unstoppable. And then eventually something happened that eventually ended all of that. And in some cases, you find out that an unstoppable company that seemed like it was going to be around forever is suddenly going out of business. It's the sort of thing that can happen in a market. And it can happen in this market too. This situation is annoying to us Western customers, but there is no guarantee that it will last any respectable length of time, much less forever. Economies can change. Things can get nasty over in China, and things can be wonderful here in the United States. And we'll see these money grubbers flip back the other way, as they've done this time. Doesn't make what they're doing right, but it's the way things are sometimes. Take Walmart, for example. I remember the days when Walmart was considered 100% invincible and unstoppable, and the future was Walmart. The Orwellian company that took over the world was gonna be Walmart. Nothing could stop Walmart. Nobody could compete with Walmart. And then along came Amazon. And then along came the struggles that Walmart has had with its image as a cheap stuff store every couple of years. And then came the omni-channel thing. What to do about a huge e-tailer like Amazon and stuff like that. And Amazon right now looks unstoppable, but if you learn anything from these kinds of situations, they're not going to be unstoppable forever. Here's another example, and one that you might laugh at. Blockbuster Video. We nowadays know Blockbuster as the company that didn't keep up with the times, and Netflix crushed them and blah, blah, blah. But once upon a time, Blockbuster was crushing all the independent video rental chains. They seemed unstoppable and invincible. More and more segments of the U.S. market was making it a Blockbuster night when they wanted to rent movies. I still can sing the jingle if you really wanted me to, because I've still got it stuck in my head all these years later. There once was a time when Blockbuster seemed to be unstoppable until things changed. And that's the situation that we can expect to eventually happen with Blizzard. Is that, yeah, there's not a thing we can do about this situation right now that wouldn't make the problem worse. But we can rest assured in the fact that markets change enough that at some point, something is going to change. It could even be something we're not expecting. Like maybe Activision spins Blizzard off, and Blizzard gets bought by somebody else who wants to do things differently, and or regain the Western audience, and not give up a mature, developed customer base for a question mark in an emerging market. You never know. But as unfair as the situation is right now, the way that Blizzard wins even more is if they influence whether or not you play what you want to play and don't play what you don't want to play. I'm thinking of canceling my WoW subscription again Not because of this Blitzchung controversy, not because of what's going on with China, not because of an unfair situation involving a Blizzard that seems to be unstoppable, and they're not. Once upon a time, World of Warcraft did not have viable competition. Now it does. It's not as dominant in the MMO genre as it used to be, and in many ways, Blizzard's version of features that are common across MMOs are often the worst and most half-cooked. I came back to World of Warcraft mostly to check out Classic, and to see how Classic would go. But the decline with Classic is already happening too. I made a character a couple of days ago on my Classic server just to see if Blizzard had fixed the neutral mobs in the start zones that should be aggressive, because that's a change that came out in Lich King, and it should have been rolled back in Classic for a more authentic vanilla experience. That hasn't been fixed yet, but what I did notice was that even during primetime hours, the start zone was nearly empty. And this got me thinking about something I totally missed when I talked about how Classic WoW was you think you do, but you won't. And that is the simple fact that unlike in vanilla when the game was growing and people knew there was going to be new content and people would get curious about the game because they'd heard about it from folks that were playing it, etc. Now you know there's a definite endpoint to the progression in Classic. So eventually, at the lower end of the player curves, so to speak, in terms of who's what level, and are people leveling alts or not, we're probably going to see emptier zones and bigger versions of the problems that led to things like de-eliting the elites to make the quests more solo-friendly, and things like cross-realm zones and stuff like that. We're probably going to see the bad stuff that inspired the creation of those game features in more modern versions of WoW than we did in the original game, simply because of the difference between vanilla and Classic. Maybe that's when Blizzard will cave and ruin this product that they're advertising as archival and stuff like that. But this is why I took the supposed runaway success of Classic with a grain of salt, because I knew that this was coming. There would be this bubble of folks checking this game out because absence makes the heart grow fonder, and this content has been out of the game for years. But I knew the bubble would burst. And now here it is with the decline taking place. There's fragmented guilds all over the place, whereas previously there was one or two big ones. Now there's everybody wants to have their own guild. I see way too many guild names when I run through the major cities. And I wonder what it's going to do to progression in raids and stuff if none of the guilds can attain the critical mass necessary to sustain a 40-man raid team. And because we know about the differences between Classic and Vanilla, when these drop-offs start happening, like what I've been talking about, what then? Like I said, no king rules forever. And it's been fun watching Asmongold's stream and seeing him just use a little bit of common sense and actually agree with me as a result of a lot of this stuff. I don't know or care if he's listening to any of my podcasts about this stuff. You know, there's a thing out there where great minds think alike and good ideas may be thought of by more than one person. So when I see Asmongold agreeing with me that there are people out there who believe that BFA does nothing right and Classic does nothing wrong, and when I see him talk about how he definitely wants to play retail in patch 8.3, no matter how many people in his audience hate the fact that he actually wants to stream something other than Classic, and when I see him talk about streaming the same game for too long, gradually deteriorating your audience because people get bored of the same old, and it sounds exactly like my rationale for taking a break from tech videos to emphasize the gaming elements of this channel a couple of months ago. I just smile and continue with my day, happy that these good ideas are showing up somewhere else for a change, and not just on my lonely little YouTube channel here, in a day and age where YouTube is a nightmare for creators of all sizes because of the algorithms and the various ways that YouTube has been struggling with all this bad PR and how they're scrambling to make changes more frequently than ever before. So Blizzard wants to play these games? Well, guess what? I've seen Blizzard play games before. I've seen Blizzard scoot on out of the office on a Friday and leave some controversial forum post for people to get mad about over the weekend. I've seen all of this stuff before. Matter of fact, I'll just tell you right now that Blizzard still has a couple of weeks to figure out what changes they're going to make to BlizzCon to diffuse this Blitzchung thing. I would not be surprised if something is changing in the opening keynote to deal with this early on in the convention, to try and not have it dog the breakout sessions, which may or may not contain the information I'm looking for as to what big features are going to be released in the next expansion that are going to bring World of Warcraft more in line with its competitors. But my reasons for potentially canceling my subscription are not going to be thrashed around by this nonsense that's currently going on with Blizzard. Blizzard has had nonsense on a very regular basis. It's one of the reasons why they no longer dominate the MMO scene as much as they used to. There are compelling MMOs out there that are doing different things other than copying WoW nowadays. That's another market change. World of Warcraft seemed unstoppable in the MMO world at one point, and now there are other games that are based on major IPs that are worth playing, and they're not just trying to copy WoW all the time. And in some cases, like with ESO, and Star Wars The Old Republic, getting away from copying WoW actually made the games much better and made them into what they are today in terms of being worth playing. So my subscription expires on October 20th, and it's a question mark as to whether I keep it going or not, or if I just see what happens at BlizzCon before I decide whether I want to have anything more to do with this game or not. Does Blizzard actually get it this time, or should I just go back to playing other stuff? It's not going to bother me either way, because what's also happening around the 20th of the month here in October 2019 is the BFA sale, which was extended, is ending on October 20th, assuming it's not extended again. This was supposed to be just a September sale for BFA, and it turned into a September-October sale. So what's Blizzard going to do regarding BFA and folks like myself who are determined to not pay full price for it because of BFA's various shortcomings? But what's also happening is the next installment of the Season of the Dragon, and I believe the release of Southern Elsewhere in ESO, is going live on the 21st, along with the performance improvements on that PowerPoint slide that I keep mentioning on Twitter as an example of nice, clear, concise communication from the devs to the players without starting drama or wagging fingers at people. That's a refreshing change of pace from what I put up with in Blizzard Land. Even with this current stint with WoW, my experience has been pretty split down the middle. When I play the game myself, I'm fine. I like the stories in BFA. There's altaholic things that I can do to better my characters in this game and progress them along. But then when I try to do stuff in groups, whether it's guild runs, dungeon runs, island expeditions, or what have you, that's when I see the nonsense that makes me sorry I even play this game. Same thing with the drama in the chat channels, people bashing me because I'm not totally in lockstep with the descendant of the Lich King meta that is being challenged in other games, and things along those lines. World of Warcraft for me is one of those MMOs that I only want to play through the story on and don't really want to do too much else in otherwise, unlike ESO. Final Fantasy's in the same position. That's not a good position to be in for a company that wants to persistently monetize a subscription revenue off of players. There's plenty of stuff for me to do in the game on my various characters across both factions, but the question is whether or not I really want to. But what matters here is that I would be making this decision because of stuff that I want to do, not because of external stuff involving Blizzard, Blitzchung, or anything. It's my decision. I'm still in control of that, and I'm going to proceed just as I would without Blizzard's various gaffes and stumbles really spinning me all over the place and getting me all worked up. Plus, I know that times change and markets change with it. So the nonsense that brought this problem into existence will be the nonsense that eventually takes it away. It's just the way things are. And I've seen these situations happen enough times to want to actually have learned something from them and to not get all worked up about it. So I'm not boycotting Blizzard. I'm not shutting down my accounts. I'm not canceling my WoW subscription because of what's going on. I will either play this game or not play this game because of my own reasons. and not be spun all over the place by a company that never seems to learn their lesson from these various gaffes. But quite frankly, I'm not going to be so torn up about things as some other people out there who let themselves be fishbowled by World of Warcraft, as if it's the worst thing in the world if they ever have to play another MMO. Well, I got news for you. It's not. And it's easier than you think. The question is, are people willing to move on if it seems like Blizzard isn't going to cooperate here? That's the question. And I'm sure the devs can come up with some talking, or someone like Hazakostas, I should say, can come up with some talking around in circles, BS-loaded excuse for why people are cyclical with a game they used to play all the time. But I think we'll all know the real reason why that sort of stuff happens. So no, I'm not boycotting Blizzard. I'll play their games if I want to, and if I don't want to, I won't. But I know better than to let myself get all torn up and tied in knots by gaffes like this. Now back to actually playing these games while this podcast gets whatever crap views it's going to get. This is MultimediaJay Radio Style. Don't touch that dial.